Have you ever seen an ant take a break? In all the years of your life, and every time you've come across that little tiny little guy, have you ever seen it just stop? Just to stop and rest? You ever draw a circle around it with a pencil and try to trap it? It never sits idle, never sits still. And as we get into this proverb today, I want you to keep that in mind, especially as a believer, if you call yourself one, and of how this might encourage and challenge you to live every aspect of your day today to honor God. And if you haven't read this passage yet, go ahead and pause, take time to read this, and let the words of the Lord soak in. And for you today, in Proverbs chapter 6, the warning against folly, in this proverb of wisdom and an illustration we see in verses 6 through 8, it says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest." And I love that the author of this proverb decided to use one of the most simple creatures, the least complex, if anything, to demonstrate a true concept of wisdom. And right after it says go to the ant, it says, "You sluggard," somebody who is lazy, who is slothful. If anything, if we're comparing to ants, we might as well compare it to a slug. Slow moving, doesn't get very far, doesn't do a lot. And yet we're to consider an ant and its ways, and to be wise from it. You see, it has no commander, no overseer or ruler. The queen ant isn't out giving orders to every other ant. And yet it knows to store up for itself provisions in the time of summer, when maybe resources are running a little bit scarce or a little bit thin. And it gathers its food at harvest, knowing this is when to get the food. And as I think about it, and as the Lord started in my heart, as I read this passage, it was an encouragement and a challenge to me, because the ant is never idle. The ant is never still. Anytime I've come across one in all the years of my life, I've never seen an ant just lie there unless it was smushed. And I could not help but tie that into who we are as believers. That we as believers are to be like ants. Except we have a commander, we have an overseer, we have a ruler. We don't have to worry about storing up for ourselves provisions. We don't have to worry about gathering food or worrying about our income or our daily bread. Why? Because Jesus is our commander. God is our overseer and our ruler. And we don't have to worry about those other things, because God is our strength and our stronghold. God is incredible, and in His providence we are taken care of. But for us as believers, because Jesus does sit on the throne of our heart, we are not to be idle, we are not to be still, we are not to be complacent. We are to be doers of the word, not hearers only. And if this is any encouragement to you, to those who are listening, and to those who are watching, as it convicted my heart, I don't want to be a slug compared to the ant. I would like to be an ant, to be considered wise, to be considered a hard worker. And I would like to be considered a hard worker and a faithful servant to the Most High God. To be a faithful servant. And to hear the word someday that says, "Well done," from the Lord Himself, my Savior. And I hope and pray that you would desire the same thing, but we cannot be complacent Christians. We cannot be idle believers. We need to be doers of the word, not just hearers only.